Antony, thanks for joining WADA Talks. 2016 is obviously Olympic year. What does it mean for golf to come back into the Olympic fray after so many years?
Yeah, it's been a long break, 112 years. We're excited, we're honoured to be back in the fold, and I think we'll make the most of this opportunity. At this stage, we're only in the games till 2020, and we have to make a good appearance. And having just done our test event last week, we're excited. We have a great golf course, and the Brazilian players that played it last week said it was one of the best they've played, and we're very honoured to do this, and I'm sure the players will feel the same and find Rio 2016 Olympic Games a unique experience for them.
What sort of impact do you think golf's reintroduction will have on the sport as a whole in terms of popularity and getting people involved in the sport?
Well, we're already seeing it actually. So when we came into the program in 2009, we had 105 national federations, and now we've grown to 146. So from that recognition as an Olympic sport, we've seen a number of countries then recognise golf as a sport as opposed to a pastime. And with that, our membership has been able to gain resources and facilities that they never had before. So we're already seeing the benefits of being part of the Olympic program. We're hoping, as we've seen in tennis and other sports, once you're established as a sport, your participation levels grow. So, with the 3.2 billion potential viewers that Rio will bring us, we're hoping we'll attract more and more people to our sport, firstly as fans and then hopefully as participants.
Looking at doping and the sport of golf, what are the main concerns you have?
Well, I think the first thing is education. For some of the players, they have a different code and a different prohibited list, small but variances, and our concern is lack of education. So we've spent a lot of time educating the players. We've put together a lot of manuals. We've had seminars with the players. We've been very lucky to have WADA support us in a webinar which was very well supported by the players and the agents. We've put that on our site, the video of that. And so we can't do enough education and make sure that the players are prepared for the games. They understand their responsibilities. We're a sport of values. We're a sport that obeys the rules. We're one of the few sports where an athlete has to penalise themselves. So we don't have any problems with the players having the values and the spirit not to cheat. What we're concerned about is the players with these newer rules, through ignorance, hopefully not, but a lack of education, that they may make some errors, and that's what we don't want.
Looking to your counterparts at other golfing bodies, of course prominent bodies, the PGA for example, they follow different rules. What's your relationship like with these tours?
Well, we've brought them onto our anti-doping committee. So the four major tours, which represent 95% of the athletes that will be competing at the Rio Olympics, have been part of our anti-doping committee since 2011. So they've been also party to our development of the 2015 rules, so the new code. So by having them part of this, they've been able to understand the gaps and differences between their own codes and our code, and they're bridging those gaps. And also on the prohibited list. So we've seen, from this cooperation and collaboration, a great steps being made forward in their anti-doping programs. And when we're leading into Rio, we're working with them in terms of our own test distribution programs. So they'll be assisting us and working with us in terms of testing the athletes leading up to the games and assisting us in our program.
Do you feel that with PGA players coming under the IGF umbrella, if you like, for Rio, do you feel that's an opportunity for the PGA to adopt WADA code rules beyond Rio and in the future? Is this launchpad?
I think the potential's there, and like all things, they're a player-run organisation. So the players themselves, who will experience, the first time using atoms and to stipulate their whereabouts, because previously the players' tours organise their daily travel schedules. They know exactly where they are. So this is different. Now, it's the IGF. We don't know where the players are, so hence why we needed to implement the Adams Code. So I see, from their experiences of implementing new things such as Adams, being subject to a WADA compliant code in terms of a prohibited list, and if they see that the variances aren't that great, that through player pressure, we may see some changes there and acceptance.
Can you explain a bit further the anti-doping process ahead of the games and indeed for the doping control during the competition period as well?
Each of the players, there's 120 players at this stage, male and females, but that's the field. So as of the 6th of May, these people will come under, all of those players that at that period of time would have competed at the Olympic Games if it was held then, would become part of our registered testing pool. And we've made a greater commitment in terms of the size of our pool. So what we're saying is each of the athletes at that period of time that qualify moving forward will be added to the registered testing pool. And having done that, they would then be subjected to Adams and whereabouts. And then what we're working on is a collaborative approach, as I said earlier, with the PGAs, with each of the bigger tours, but also with our NADOs, to be able to cover all these players well and to react to any intelligence that we have through this IOC intelligence group, and we'll liaise with that, to ensure that every player is tested at least once before they get there, and a majority would already been tested anyway within the programs that the tours are doing. So that when it comes to the podiums in August, that the athletes we have up there are clean. And I don't anticipate there being any issues. If there are, I think it'd be more education issues. And I think given the values of our sport, we'll see clean athletes competing and we'll see clean athletes on the podium.
As the head of an international body representing a sport, what do you think you'd like to see from a Games in terms of doping in the sport? Would you want to see a high number of cases which says, look, there's been a good program put in place, or do you prefer to see fewer cases which show that athletes are being deterred from doping in golf because there's a strong program in place?
Well, I think the federations have a responsibility to, as best they can, ensure that the players that compete, the athletes that compete at the Olympics are clean. And that's our responsibility to our players, to ensure that every one of those that tee up come Rio are clean. And that's our responsibility. And so for me, my hope is that for all sports, when we come to Rio, the cheats are not there. And that we as the federations, the IFs, have worked together with the NADOs to ensure that we capture them before the Games and before any major event that we have.
What particular banned substances are at risk in the sport of golf?
You know what, it's pretty hard. If anything, there may be EPO, and we haven't seen any evidence of that. If anything, there may be steroids, but so far, through our testing, we've in the professional game, we've only seen one positive test in steroids, and that person owned up to it, having realised that he was taking a supplement which contained something that was prohibited. So again, that shows the ethics of our players, where they volunteered and said, hang on, I've done the wrong thing. So the tours themselves are spending millions of dollars on testing, ensuring the integrity of their week in, week out events, that the players are clean. And through this extensive testing, with the exception of one case, we've had no performance-enhancing positive tests. So I think we know what the risks are. They're similar to other sports in terms of these type of sports, aerobic sports. But at this stage, we don't see any evidence that this is prevalent.
You've talked about athletes speaking up, and athletes can put a great deal of pressure on other organisations, for instance, to up their game with their anti-doping procedures. How important is the athlete in terms of, and how prevalent has the athlete been in speaking up on the anti-doping processes that exist under the IGF programme?
Well, the athlete to us is core, and it's core to all the tours as well, because they're athlete-run and owned organisations. We've put together an athletes committee which has the top athletes participating on this. We've had feedback from them as to how we've gone about this anti-doping program, how we can educate the players leading up to the games, how we can support them through this. And so it's very much been an athlete focus from us. And in addition, we've continued to get feedback from the athletes by integrating the player liaisons that each of these tours have, who are week in, week out. Their role is to speak to the athletes, and they're focusing on Olympic issues. And so, the four tournaments this weekend, the professional tours will have these liaisons speaking to the athletes and saying to them, any issues with the games, any problems you have, with the anti-doping being very prevalent right now because they're having to sign a form which puts them under our jurisdiction during that 13-week period, as well as conforming to the jurisdiction of their particular tours. So for us, we've been very much athlete focused on this.
What one message would you give to golfers considering doping at the Rio Games?
Well, we're such a sport of values. I'd be so surprised that an elite player who subjects themselves and prides themselves on calling penalties, even if they think that it may be okay, but they would still rather call a penalty than be labelled as someone that has not worked in the spirit of the sport. So for me, I'd be very surprised if an athlete would go against the core value of our sport and cheat by taking any type of performance-enhancing drug. And if that person were to do that, well, that person doesn't really belong in our sport.
Antony Scanlon, thank you very much.
Thank you.